So that brings us to today's workshop is services for children who are blind or visually impaired. What can VABVI provide for my child? I'm excited to introduce to you Stephanie Bissonnette, the VABVI Director of Children's Services, a licensed teacher of the visually impaired and a certified orientation and mobility specialist. In addition to overseeing the Children's Services Department, she supervises 15 TVIs, COMs, and CATIS for children with visual impairments. Joining also is Taya Tarr, the Vocational Rehabilitation Counselor for the Vermont Division of the Blind and Visually Impaired. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, I'll take it from here. I will pull up a PowerPoint slide. Click from the beginning. Okay. So today's objectives are to review VAB services, explain what the expanded core curriculum is, talk about our role, responsibilities, and competencies, discuss the evaluations we provide, how to make a referral, the different types of contracted services, talk about our population. We have a few slides that talk about the division for the blind and visually impaired, and LEAP is the Learn, Earn, and Prosper program. I'll touch upon the APH quota system and our booklet called Educating Students with Visual Impairments in Vermont. So the four major job descriptions at VAB are: the TVI is a licensed teacher of the visually impaired, certified orientation and mobility specialist. CATIS stands for Certified Assistive Technology Instructional Specialist, specifically for individuals with visual impairments. And CVRT is a certified vision rehabilitation therapist that works mostly with adults. But in general, VAB provides services from birth to end of life. 7 of our employees have won awards in excellence in education for children with visual impairments. We employ a total of 16 qualified individuals in our Children's Services Department. 15 are licensed TVIs. 7 are duly certified as TVI and O&M instructors. We have 1 full-time COM specifically for children, in addition to the ones that are duly certified. And 2 of the above employees are triple certified as a teacher of the visually impaired, mobility specialist, and assistive technology specialist. And then we employ additional staff, as I had mentioned earlier. So what are the TVI responsibilities? They revolve a lot around what is called the expanded core curriculum. This term is used to define concepts and skills that often require specialized instruction with students who are blind and visually impaired in order to compensate for their decreased opportunities to learn incidentally by observing others. So there are 9 areas of the ECC. So 1 is compensatory, and I have a slide for each one of these. Orientation and mobility, socialization, daily living skills, rec and leisure, career education, assistive technology, sensory skills, and self-determination. So the first area of ECC is compensatory. These are skills necessary for accessing the core curriculum, including concept development for the younger kids, communication modes, organization, study skills, making sure they can access print, use of Braille, tactile graphics, object and tactile symbols, sign language. That would be for the deafblind. We are not certified, and I want to be clear. We're not certified in sign language. We just know the basics. And then audio materials. So for example, we help students make science accessible because you can't see what's in the microscope. And then for social studies, making maps accessible as well. In addition, I've got music and art. As far as orientation and mobility, the second area of the ECC, this is provided specifically by that certified orientation and mobility instructor. And this is instruction for the future non-drivers. So O&M instruction enables students of all ages and motor abilities to be oriented to their surroundings and to move as independently and safely as possible. Students learn about themselves, their environments, including home, school, the community. O&M lessons incorporate skills ranging from basic body image to spatial relationships and purposeful movement to cane usage, travel in the community. I'm getting feedback here, sorry. Could everybody mute their speakers? Thank you. And the use of public transportation. Having O&M skills enables students to acquire independence to the greatest extent possible based on their individual needs and abilities. The third area of the ECC is socialization. How can you find or make a friend when you can't see them? Social interaction skills include awareness of body language, gestures, facial expressions, personal space. It includes learning about interpersonal relationships, self-control, and human sexuality. Almost all social skills are learned by visually observing other people. Instruction and social interaction skills in school, work, and recreational settings is crucial. Having appropriate social skills can often mean the difference between social isolation and fulfilling life as an adult. Thank you for bearing with me. I have a cold and my throat is getting drier. The fourth area of the ECC is daily living skills, also known as independent living skills. We're talking about daily routines that include tasks and functions that people perform in their daily life so that they can increase their independence and contribute to the family structure. These skills include personal hygiene, eating skills, food prep, time and money management, clothing care, household tasks. People with vision typically learn these routines through observations, whereas individuals with visual impairments often need systemic instruction and frequent practice in daily skills and daily tasks. So we know the tricks of the trade and how to cut safely, how to pull something out of the oven safely, things like that. The fifth area of the ECC is the rec and leisure. So being able to observe others reduces awareness of rec and leisure options. Instruction in recreation and leisure skills will ensure the students with visual impairments will have opportunities to explore, experience physical and leisure time activities. The instruction should focus on lifelong skills. For example, we'll go into schools and we'll consult with the PE, helping to make it more accessible. The sixth area of the ECC is career education, noting that there is a 70% unemployment rate among individuals with visual impairments. Career education will provide students with visual impairments of all ages the opportunity to learn through hands-on experiences about jobs that they have not otherwise are aware of. They also learn work-related skills such as assuming responsibility, punctuality, financial literacy, and staying on task. Career education provides opportunities for students to explore, discover strengths and interests, and plan for their transition to adult life. Okay, my eyes are tearing up. All right. ECC 7 of 9, assistive technology. Since most jobs require computer skills, this is crucial. Assistive technology is an umbrella term that includes assistive and adaptive tools as well as instructional services that can enhance communication, access, and learning. It can include electronic equipment such as switches, mobile devices, portable note takers, magnification software, screen readers, keyboarding, low-tech devices such as an abacus, a brailler, or active learning materials such as a little room, or optical devices such as magnifiers. The 8th area of the ECC is sensory efficiency, maximizing your other senses. So we're including instruction in enhancing your vision, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. It also addresses proprioceptive, kinesthetic, and vestibular systems. So learning to use their senses effectively, efficiently, including the use of optical devices, will enable students to access and participate in activities in their home, school, and community environments. And last but not least is the self-determination. having control of your own life. Self-determination includes choice making, decision making, problem solving, personal advocacy, assertiveness, goal setting. Students with visual impairments often have fewer opportunities to develop and practice these skills that are so important for self-determination. Students who know and value who they are and who have self-determination skills become effective advocates for themselves and therefore have more control over their lives. So what are the TVI competencies? Excuse me, my coughing. Our TVIs have graduated from college programs specifically to train teachers of the visually impaired. Our TVIs are licensed by the Vermont AOE, and the Vermont AOE TVI competency areas cover these following areas: learning environments, curricular content, assessments we'll get into, instructional planning and direct instruction. Again, we'll get in more, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Consultation and collaboration. We collaborate with families, IEP, 504 teams, SLPs, OTs, PT, deaf and hard of hearing, deaf blind. We work with local test administrators to make sure the state testing is accessible to each individual. And I like to share that Braille is more than the alphabet. So for example, one sample of a Braille symbol is below. So there are two types of Braille, uncontracted and contracted. And there are two types of Braille math. One's called Nemeth and one is called UEB technical. One Braille symbol will represent multiple things. For example, I have this blue dot here and it's called dot 2. It represents the EA contraction, such as in the word meet. It also means a comma at the end of a word. It could represent the number 1 in Nemeth math. It represents the fourth finger when playing the piano or the right heel when playing the organ and so on. So just wanted to drive home the point that Braille is more than the alphabet. Here's just a sample of a Braille page. And it's an example of the Braille software translation programs that we have. So what does a certified orientation mobility specialist do? Well, first of all, they're required to complete 37 credits specific to visual impairments. They're trained in non-visual training skills as far as accessing their schools and communities. They're trained in the use of the long cane, monocular telescope for those with low vision, echolocation. They have proficiency in human guide, protective techniques, alignment, search techniques, basic orientation and body image, spatial, temporal, positional, directional. They adapt non-visual skills. They can create tactile maps. They can teach talking GPS and mobility apps. They understand the prerequisites to becoming a dog guide user. And yes, you do need a recommendation by an orientation and mobility instructor in order to get a dog guide. And the reason why I'm saying a dog guide is because it's a dog first and a guide second, just as we describe our students as it's a child with a visual impairment. Teaching students to find destinations with strategies, including following directions, using landmarks, compass directions, teaching kids to cross streets, learning traffic patterns, intersections, problem-solving skills when they get disoriented or lost, or use the public transportation system because most of our students are unable to drive. What does a certified assistive technology specialist do? This is a postmaster's level certification specific for students with visual impairment. So they'll assess and provide instruction in AT as assistive technology. They'll come up with solutions. They collaborate with schools' IT to increase student access. They operate and instruct on both screen reading, meaning talking software, and screen magnification. Their expertise in Chromebook accessibility for students with visual impairments. They understand Braille tablets and Braille displays. The picture is of a student using a Braille laptop computer called the Braille Note. There are different types of them, and I'll show you a later one. I'm going to point this one out. because that has a screen on it. And that's a good model for kids that are in school, because then the sighted teacher can see exactly what they're typing in print at the same time that the student is either typing it in or the student is reading the Braille display. They engage in collaborative team approach, as you can imagine. They are very knowledgeable about iPads, switch accesses, AAC devices, and knowledgeable about the accessible features for statewide tests, and they support teachers, paraprofessionals, and students during the testing. All right, the slide says, can you look at your computer, or can you see your computer? Actually, let me get rid of this black. I'm trying to get rid of this black screen I have here. Hit me, whoops. All right, sorry, hang on. Let's go back here. Okay, this is all about, can you operate your computer if you can't see what's on the screen? There's a black tab that's blocking what I can see on my own PowerPoint presentation. So basically, the question is, can you shut off your computer, cover your screen, and then turn it back on and get to the internet without looking or using the cursor? And the reason why I mention this is because frequently a lot of teachers might think that, oh, using something like read, write aloud is enough, or different types of software programs. But if they can't operate it from turning the computer on all the way to providing their work and creating their homework and sending emails to their teachers independently, then they really need a different type of software program that I'll get into a little bit later. So our students must use assistive technologies designed for the visually impaired, because many software products are still not 100% accessible. They may say they are, but they are only partially accessible. For example, pictures and graphs are not typically accessible to the blind. Think how often you are viewing pictures and gaining information by looking. They are usually lacking image descriptions for the blind. So moving on. There we go. So schools are using fewer and fewer hard books. Therefore, it takes a combination of technology resources to meet their needs, such as some of the APH products I'm going to be talking about listed below, in combination with downloaded books from Bookshare, Bard, which is a free program for those who are legally blind through the Vermont State Library, and your teacher of the visually impaired can set you up with that. Learning Ally. No one product meets all of their needs any more than one product meets all of your needs. The evaluations provided by our staff include a functional vision assessment. I'll touch upon each one of these a little bit more. Learning media assessment, trying to decide, large print versus Braille. Cortical visual impairment assessment, orientation and mobility assessment, daily living skills assessment, social skills checklist, assistive technology assessment, and then assessment of Braille literacy skills. So the functional vision evaluation, we always review a copy of the eye report from the ophthalmologist or optometrist. We take that eye report and put it into layman's terms for the parents and schools. We go into the school, do observations, work a little one-on-one with the student to measure how well the child uses their vision to perform routine tasks in different places with different materials throughout the day. A functional vision assessment paints a picture of how the child uses their vision and what visual skills the child needs to develop. The learning media assessment helps determine if specific visual, tactile, or auditory learning media are appropriate for the learner. It also helps determine if a student is primarily a large print reader or Braille reader or both. It could be all three. It could be print, Braille, and auditory. Cortical visual impairment, most of the students in the United States and in Vermont as well do have cortical visual impairment. So I grabbed this from the CVI Now website. There are 16 characteristics of CVI to evaluate. It's the most common cause, as I already stated. The latest research shows that 1 in 30 kids have a CVI-related visual difficulty. CVI is common in neurodevelopment conditions and complications from premature birth, lack of oxygen, pediatric stroke, or genetic conditions. Up to 70% of kids have cerebral palsy, 38% have Down syndrome. They also have CVI. It causes children with healthy eyes to have difficulty processing what they see. Many of the students with CVI will also have an ocular condition. It causes children to display some unique visual behaviors of the 16 characteristics, commonly seen when there is damage to the brain's visual system. It is typically diagnosed when abnormal visual responses cannot be attributed to just the eyes. As Matt Tahegan, leader in the CVI field, stated, CVI is an impairment in the brain's ability to convert the raw data from the eye into a reliable, meaningful image of the world that cannot be interpreted and acted upon. So basically with CVI, the structure of the eye is intact. It's the pathways that have been interrupted and causing confusion. The orientation mobility evaluation is completed by the COMS, the certified O&M instructor. They'll evaluate body image, positions, environmental concepts. We are asking questions like, has the child met their O&M milestones for their age? Like, are they walking independently? Are they crossing streets independently? Can they get to their classes independently? Can they get on and off the bus independently? Do they know how to take a city bus? Can they, as they become a transition age, can they take the bus to work and back? Do they need a cane? Do they need to learn techniques such as human guide, upper and lower protective techniques, or trailing techniques? There is a daily living skills evaluation and a social skills evaluation. So again, it's like, has the child met their daily living skills milestones? Everything from, are they feeding themselves? Are they able to prepare their breakfast on their own? Can they prepare a meal? It's the whole gamut from birth to when they graduate from high school. Can they take their own medications? Everything. And it also includes hygiene and getting dressed in the morning, to showering independently, to picking out their own clothes. As far as the social skills, again, has the child met the social skills milestones for their age? The Assistive Technology Evaluation that's specific to children with visual impairments helps persons increase access to the general curriculum, improve academic performance, and can also provide a means for job and career access. It's important to thoughtfully consider what devices, tools, technologies will be appropriate to meet the person's individual and unique learning and visual needs. Is there a need for some form of assistive technology in order to access print on paper, as well as in electronic forms on your computer? So there's a picture here of a CCTV for kids that need larger print. The middle picture is of a Braille note taker, and this would be for your teenager, definitely for adults that don't need that visual screen. And the last picture, excuse me, is the 3 software programs. JAWS is a talking software, Zoomtext is the large print software, and Fusion is a combination of both. So why would somebody need both? If they have a progressive visual impairment, they may, they're probably still reading print, but they need to give their eyes a break. So then in the afternoon or later in the day, they can use the JAWS talking software. Assessment of Braille literacy skills. Once Braille has been determined, this assessment is a way for the TVIs, the teachers of the visually impaired, to track student progress toward obtaining Braille literacy skills beyond the Braille code and address these areas. Are they an emergent literacy? Are they academic literate, and do they have functional daily literacy in the areas of Braille? As far as VAB services and referrals, as I mentioned earlier, our agency provides services from birth to to end of life. We're a statewide organization with 4 offices in South Burlington, Berlin, Rutland, and Brattleboro. An application for referrals for children's services can be found on our website, www.vab.org, or by calling me at 1-800-639-5861, extension 225. All referral paperwork is sent to me, then I will assign the cases to the teachers of the visually impaired. And we require an I report, as I had mentioned earlier, to help determine if the student meets the Vermont AOE requirements as having a visual impairment. There's basically three levels of services, and those are weekly, monthly, and consultation. So we may provide direct or consultation to a student weekly, which means 1 or more visits per week, including direct instruction in the expanded core curricular areas. Monthly services are 1 to 3 visits per month. Consultation is typically 5, it's every other month, 5 visits or less per year. The first evaluation for a new referral for students ages 3 to 22 who are not in our database is free. And we're more than happy to, for those schools or parents that are on the fence, they don't know what's happening, we're more than happy to come in, do a functional vision evaluation, determine if there's a need for accommodations or not, or if there's a need for teacher of the visually impaired or other staff members or not. So my point is, we're happy to help you rule in or rule out the need for vision services. Otherwise, a contract is created between VAB and the school district each year. As far as what does our population look like, I'm just going to look at that last category. We're bouncing back from COVID. In 2022, we had 43 students receiving weekly services, 78 receiving monthly services, 109 consultation only, and 10 infant and toddlers. I anticipate that'll bounce back to the pre-COVID numbers in the coming years. Most of our students have some degree of vision. So 130 of our students are mildly visually impaired, and that means they have a visual acuity between 20/70 and 20/150. 138 students in the state are legally blind, and they have acuities that are worse, and they are between 2,200 and 21,000. Of that 138, 78 of those have cortical visual impairments. There are 9 students who are totally blind. Some are academic, some have complex needs. 9 students are primarily Braille readers or dual media, meaning print and Braille readers. Approximately 50% have additional disabilities. The 4 leading causes of visual impairment in the United States are cortical visual impairment, retinopathy of prematurity, optic nerve conditions, and albinism, and there's ocular albinism or the total albinism, which means hair, skin, and eyes. OSEP in 2017 sent a memo out, as well as the Vermont AOE sent it out in 2018 of their version of expanding the definition of visual impairment. So historically, the student evaluation team, which included the case manager and maybe an organization such as VAB, would stop a referral at what we call Gate 1 eligibility if the student did not meet the Vermont AOE regulations for visual impairment. But the new OSEP memo and the Vermont AOE memo has expanded the definition of visual impairment, which now allows the evaluation planning team to move to Gate 2 to identify adverse effect if the student evaluation team has observed some unusual visual behaviors that are affecting the child's educational performance. Taya is going to talk from here.
All right,
ahead,
thank you,
Taya.
Stephanie. Yeah, so I'm just gonna briefly kind of discuss the division for the blind and the visually impaired. As Stephanie mentioned, 70% of adults with visual impairments are unemployed. And so what our agency does is help fulfill those employment goals of those that are visually impaired. We're very similar to Higher Ability, formerly known as Voc Rehab, where both departments are we're both divisions housed underneath the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living. So we partner with VABVI with our transition program, which is called the Learn, Earn, and Prosper. That is a workforce development program that provides pre-employment transitional services to transition-aged youth who are blind or visually impaired and whose goal is to become employed or pursue post-secondary education or vocational training. You know, in order to participate in the LEAP program, the Learn, Earn, and Prosper, you have to be open with us, and then we would provide all the funding for that. Also, on a side note, the LEAP has grown over the past 15 years, and now we collaborate with a lot of other states as well and invite other participants to join our programs. To be open with us with DBVI, you need to be 14 years old. And we also start there, but we do provide services through adulthood. And then so to define our visual impairment, an eye condition may not be so severe as to be legally blind, but vision in the better eye with the best correction is not better than 20/50. Or the condition is of a progressive nature that, if untreated, can reasonably be expected to lead to blindness. Next slide. And so I just want to elaborate a little bit. So we have two programs, the Division for the Blind, the Visually Impaired. One is our vocational rehabilitation program, which is the individual's goal is to obtain or maintain employment. This can be it's a very wide range of services, and what we do is create a plan based on the individual's need. So everyone doesn't have the same plan, right? So that could include vocational training, visual restoration, vision rehabilitation services, daily living skills training, guidance and counseling, job placement, assistive technology, education, and many others. A lot of that's kind of covered what Stephanie included, so that transfers also to adult services. And so our youth services specifically, that is through our LEAP program. We have a virtual component, community internships, and a residential program in the summertime. Usually with transition, when they're moving out of when they're in your senior year, we do an assistive technology evaluation, and that's going to be based on the student's goal. You know, if that's going to college, if that's, you know, going to a job right away, we kind of assess and see what's determined. And we work with, you know, VABVI, who have worked with the TVIs, this assistive technology trainer in the schools, and we hear from their recommendations as well. So we have a great teamwork. We also have work with an employment consultant as well, who provides job development services, so they can work on mock interviews. They can work with local businesses and do job site tours. And then we could develop that into a work experience and so on. So it's kind of just meeting the student where they're at. And then we can also provide a financial assistance for college, for books, and vocational training programs if they choose to go that way. We also do have an independent living program. So if someone's goal is maybe not employment or maybe not right now, you know, if their goal is just to remain as independent as possible, like within their home or community, we can provide like orientation mobility skills, you know, to help them. If they have one-on-one supports, we can help train and educate them to provide the level of service for that individual that's blind or visually impaired. You know, cooking in their home so they can be as independent as possible, magnification, self-care, etc. And then next slide. And so this kind of goes into our Learn, Earn, and Prosper program. You know, we provide opportunity to gain the skills needed to become independent, confident, and productive with the outcome of increased employability. We have winter retreat spring programs. We have summer programs that may not be residential, could be online or in your local community. You know, we go with the philosophy of like, find your fit, you know, where that student is may not be ready for a residential program, right? Because that's a lot. That's kind of scary, you know, maybe because it's at a college dorm and they're responsible, you know, for their daily living skills, you know, so maybe they're ready just to, maybe they just turned 14 and maybe online is more appropriate so they can start, you know, getting involved in the community. We do have the skill shops, which is kind of like, our goal is more of, you know, we have to have an employment piece to it, right? But it's more of a teenage gathering. It's more of learning from other individuals that are blind and visually impaired to increase your confidence, to increase your self-advocacy, to share stories. You know, I feel like a lot of students may be the only student in their school with a visual impairment. So this sense of community is really important. And then with that, we do, you know, provide orientation mobility skills, independent living. They all have a theme. And we also provide previous mentors that are blind and visually impaired to come and speak to those students during these workshops. They develop skills of employment and self-advocacy and self-disclosure workshops as well, because that's really important. Next slide. And so this kind of goes into more detail about our LEAP program. So our seasonal retreats and virtual skill shops are an opportunities for them to build communities. They're unpaid social opportunities that gives the teens a chance to build confidence and friendships while learning about soft skills of employability, which includes timeliness, communication, self-advocacy, and more. The weekend retreats include recreational opportunities such as biking, sailing, skiing, exploring towns across Vermont, educational workshops, orientation mobility, and vision rehab therapy. We like to partner with the Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sports during these recreational workshops, so they can provide the adaptive equipment to participate in all these activities. As I mentioned, the skill shops include speakers, and then it really focuses on the peer connections and mentorship and also networking. You know, it's really important to build that network of people that are important to you and learn from them. Yeah, and so all the skill workshops is based off the feedback from previous participants and what they like to engage in. So every year they do a survey just to continue with workshops that are most popular and most worthwhile. And the next one. And then we also collaborate with VABVI and LEAP and VABER for a yearly event called Great Expectations. The purpose of this event is to increase employment and job seeking skills, promote positive mentoring and networking, obtain feedback from clients to improve services, and to empower clients around self-advocacy and self-reliance. Our Great Expectations event is consumer driven and is accomplished through a series of planning meetings. Anyone can attend, mostly geared for individuals ages 14 and older. Both youth and adults will attend. And we strongly encourage that maybe you bring a parent or a friend or a family member as well. This year, it'll be held on Friday, April 14th at the Capitol Plaza in Montpelier. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 2:30 and lunch will be included. And it'll also be in collaboration with the VABVI Tech Fair. And then we are still finalizing our registration and flyers, so that will be sent out. And I think my email is in the chat. So if you want an invitation, feel free to email me and I'll send that out when it is completed. I think that is all I have.
Okay. Coming back to me, Stephanie Bissonette. At VAB, we have an annual summer 3-day, 2-night event run by the TVI and Comms that cover the 9 ECC areas. Every year it occurs in a different place. We've been to Boston, New York City, Burlington, Killington. We always make sure we include a rec and leisure event, rock climbing, sailing, bowling, swimming, sports games, shows. Orientation and mobility students may take public transportation when possible. Daily living skills, the students prepare their own meals, taking care of their own hygiene, keeping track of their belongings. It's an opportunity for socialization, meeting other peers with visual impairments, and opportunities for self-determination, problem solving, and making decisions. This is for students ages 6 to 18. Another program we have is called HAPI, Helping Adolescents Prepare for Independence. Our staff work one-on-one with our teenage clients, emphasizing daily living skills and providing other necessary assistance unique to each individual so that he or she can best prepare for adult life and living alone. These skills include hygiene routines, medication management, financial literacy, preparing meals, and typically these objectives are written into the IEP, allowing for VAB staffing costs to be covered through the IEP. So there's something called the APH quota system. So VAB was able to save Vermont school districts $61,000 in the 21-22 year by purchasing APH educational products specifically from the funds that VAB gets. So each January, I begin an annual registration of eligible students who are legally blind to determine the per capita amount of money. And 2 years ago, it was $468 per pupil for designated purchases, educational materials that are produced specifically and only from the American Printing House for the Blind. These funds are created or credited, are sent to the federal quota accounts, which are maintained and administered by APH and its ex officios trustees, that's me, throughout the country. These purchases can only be made by a teacher of the visually impaired, and I'll show you an example of some of these products. We can purchase large print and Braille assessments, early childhood 2D and 3D books, mathematic products. So in the pictures, I have math flashcards, both in large print and Braille. The second picture is of a 3D book. Third picture is of a tactile matching game. They have science, health, and social studies, tactile anatomy, devices, maps, PE and rec, leisure, games, beeping balls, talking dice, communication. This is where we would purchase braillers, bold line paper. There's a picture of a large print and Braille skeleton there, a beeping ball, and a Braille writer. They have, for visual efficiency, light box materials for CVI students, orientation, mobility, games, tactile town is shown below. We already talked a lot about accessible technology. I have some more to show you. Daily living skills such as color identifiers, calendars, signature guides. This is the APH Braille embosser called the Page Blaster. One's the Page Blaster, one's Pix Blaster. So we can produce Braille. This is the CCTV that I referred to. You can put a book underneath here. You can put anything. You can put a medicine bottle. You can put a fingertip. I had a student in forensics use this, and actually all the students used everything from analyzing hair follicles to fingerprints and so on, to reading books. This is a JAWS software program that I had mentioned earlier that can be purchased through APH funds. The Zoomtext is the large print software program, or Fusion, which is a combination of both. I pointed this out earlier. This is not an APH product, but as the students get older and more sophisticated, this Braille laptop computer will do everything that your computer will do. They can access the internet. They can send their teachers email, homework assignments. They can print to a Braille printer, or they can print to a regular print printer. So it's a great product for academic Braille students. This is a picture of some Braille software. It's needed, you know, so teachers will send us materials on a Monday morning, say I need this in Braille, and we put it into our Braille software program and send it to the Braille embossers. This is a Braille embosser that specifically does pictures, so it'll create graphics for math and science. It's a different printer. This is not available through APH. So an additional savings for schools is that schools can bill Medicaid for some TVI and comm services. And typically the schools just give our staff a monthly form to fill out, circling a date and the amount of time, and then we hand it back to the schools and they will bill Medicaid for some of our services. We have a booklet called Educating Students with Visual Impairments in Vermont. This is available on our website, or if you want to email me, I can mail you a hard copy of it. It's approximately 70 pages long. Here are some of the topics, everything from educational needs of students to the expanded core curriculum, population eligibility evaluations, qualifications of our staff, roles and responsibility, how do services work for birth to 3, educational placements for students, transitions, accessible materials, frequently asked questions, unique needs of students who are blind or visually impaired. There's something called the Cogswell-Macy Act that's pending for a lot of years. It's all about making things more accessible and making sure that students have things on day one. So, you know, the kids are handed the print things, the Braille students should be receiving Braille at the same time. And then there's a webcast about the role and value of the teacher, the visually impaired. So feel free to share this booklet with your case managers. As I said, it's available in hard copy, or you can contact me. So for fun, just wanted to let you know that in Burlington, one of our staff members created this walk your own, and I can't see what it says, path there, but Shelby Glass had a couple of our students using their cane. So you could see in pink and green and kind of light blue, those were 3 different students using canes. And then the orange paw prints. Typically, students don't get a dog guide until after they graduate high school. In the United States, that's the way it is. But that path is at 237 North Winooski Street in Burlington. So now's the time for questions.
Thank you very much, Stephanie and Taya. And we have one in the chat. Just bear with me a minute and I'll pull that up. Hold on one second. Well, this one is for Taya. Taya, you have some wonderful programs, but what about those with higher support needs that may never have paid employment or gain independent living skills? These students have had strong support from VABVI during their school years.
Thank you, Martha. Valerie, yes, thank you for your question. So this is kind of goes outside my expertise, since I do work with those that are blind or visually impaired that are looking to obtain or maintain employment or independent living skills. I would recommend to maybe even contact Vermont Family Network to get connected, or maybe a designated agency and ask like the case manager within your high school. I'm sorry, I wish I could better answer this question, but this kind of goes outside my scope of service.
Thank you, Taya. The next question is for Stephanie, and it is, are there any comms in Vermont experienced working with orientation for topographical agnosia diagnosed with CVI teen gatherings?
So that's very rare to have topographical agnosia. So I can't say that we've had much experience. I mean, given Vermont's is the second least populated state to begin with. But no, it's very rare to have this. Having said that, I do think some of the accommodations and recommendations that orientation mobility instructors recommend may be useful, and it's going to be individualized. It all depends on whether or not that student with CVI and topical graphical agnosia can depend on landmarks or not, or labeling, or being able to follow directions. Are they able to use a talking GPS system? Are they able to problem solve when they get lost? Do they know how to get in touch with somebody if they are lost? Are they a rote learner or a root learner? And what about backwards chaining? Is learning, you learn the last part of the root first, and then you back up instead of starting from the beginning, you actually start from the last step. And then there's always the use of cane skills. So there's a possibility. Yeah.
Okay, it looks as though we have one more question. I don't see any more in the chat, and we're going to be wrapping it up in a few minutes. I don't know if there was a second part to this question. It is my child eligible for assistance? What would that look like? And I don't quite know how that would be answered.
I get it. Yeah.
Okay.
So that goes back to earlier, where we're more than happy to come in, do a functional vision assessment, and rule in or rule out the need for services or accommodations. So when I saw that question earlier, that child had a visual acuity of 20/80. So definitely, but having that new expanded definition, anybody comes to us and saying, I mean, they could even, have better vision than 20/20, just say my student or my child is having unusual visual behaviors, is not accessing whatever their environment, their curriculum. We'll come in and try and sort out what's happening.
Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Taya. I don't think we have any more questions. I don't see any more in the chat. So thank you, everybody, for really helpful information. And you'll see a link to an evaluation in the chat. Please take a few minutes to complete it so we can make improvements and fulfill our grant requirements. We have many more interesting workshops coming up, and you can find details about those workshops on our homepage of our website at vermontfamilynetwork.org, along with the links to the previously recorded ones. We have tons of information on our website, and getting connected with us is easy. You can follow up on Facebook or join our closed Facebook page if you are a parent. We have two closed groups, one for all parents of children with disabilities, special health needs, and one for those with just adult children. You can also sign up for our monthly e-newsletter or check out our YouTube channel. We're here to help, and please contact us by phone or email. And before I wrap up, I just want to share with everyone, we also have a parent match program at Vermont Family Network. So if any of our viewers today would like to try to connect with another parent, they're welcome to try to contact Vermont Family Network and see if there is a parent match. Also, earlier in this presentation, we put a link in the chat to a prior webinar we did on the LEAP program, and it's on our YouTube channel. So the link is accessible, and I'm sure Rachel will be sending that out with your follow-up email. So thank you, everyone. Thanks again, and have a great day. Thank you to our presenters and all that attended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.